Hi guys, I'm going to take you through today's lesson on promoting social harmony, and this PowerPoint can be found on Teams and on Sector as well. If you'd like to have a look at it, please have your notes ready to write some ideas down so you're note taking as well as listen to this video. Guys, just get ready. I'm going to show you some offensive words. Guys, what I'd like you to do, just answer this question. Pause the video now and answer the question, what is the effect of using the less acceptable and not acceptable terms on this list? So what happens actually when you use these? Or you might give an example of when you might use it and it's okay to do that, and when you might use it and you think, oh, I put my foot in it there. So just pause it now, have a crack at that, answer that question. Guys, what we're doing today is understanding the ways in which we promote social harmony. So formal language tends towards this, okay, it tends towards it, but sometimes it's used for the opposite effect. So just be careful with that. The key terms that we're going to be looking at today: political correctness, non-discriminatory language, face and politeness theory, okay? We've looked at much of this before, but maybe not for formal language. So that's what we're going to do today. One of the social functions of formal text, promoting social harmony and negotiating social taboos, okay? That's what we're looking at today. You see there are 4 other things there associated with formal text. Reinforcing social distance and authority. We saw that in the Queen videos, the Queen's Christmas videos. She establishes her authority and she promotes social distance. She reinforces that social distance in some parts of that. Some formal texts are about establishing expertise. You might do that if you are speaking at a school, university, as a politician, or as an expert in a field. You might try to establish your expertise. And in doing that, you are reinforcing social distance between you and other people who don't have the knowledge that you do. Okay, the one we're looking at, promoting social harmony and negotiating social taboos. We'll look at some of those in a minute. And then formal language tends towards clarifying, manipulating, or obfuscating. Okay, you notice that politicians do this all the time. They try to clarify something, or they try to manipulate something, or they obfuscate. Just famously, in the last couple of days, Donald Trump made some points about using disinfectant and maybe putting it inside the body. And then the obfuscation around that was to say, oh, Trump was just being sarcastic because of the silly fake news media in front of him. You know, he was telling a joke and he was mocking them. That's called obfuscation. They've actually manipulated his words and rephrased it and kind of labeled it as actually, no, he was mocking them. But really, he said something entirely stupid. Let's have a look. You'll have to pause your video in just a minute. In your own words, explain the politeness theory. You can look at this. It is in your Living Lingo book. Okay, I've referenced one section, pages 8 to 10 for that, but there are more pages on it throughout the book. You'll notice that Living Lingo kind of jumps around a bit back and forth between ideas. There are multiple references to the one idea throughout the whole book. Okay, so I want you to do that. Define what it is, the politeness theory. Who is the scientist associated with the theory? And can you define positive and negative face? I want you to do that again. We've looked at it quite a lot, but can you do it again based on your memory? And if you can't, look it up in your book. Pause the video now. Looking at face, we've got Irving Goffman, who suggested that we present a particular image of ourselves to others. Okay, kind of like we've got Facebook, which is a really obvious example of that. Whatever you put on Facebook is what people see of you. So that's the image that you are portraying of yourself. Whatever you put on Facebook is the image that people see of you, and you project a particular side of yourself. Instagram is famous for people getting, almost depressed because they see these beautiful Instagram-worthy pictures of people on beaches and doing holidays and looking beautiful and pretty and, dolling themselves up to go out and doing things with other people. And people get depressed about their own life because they're sitting at home on a Saturday night, having a cup of tea, not doing the cool things that they see other people on Instagram do. So that's about the face and the image that people put up, and social media is a really obvious example of that. But you could also think about, who are you when you come to my English language class? Who are you when you go to your biology class, when you go to your French class? Some people are really proficient in that one subject, and actually the way they behave in that subject and that class is different. So the image they put out in French might be this really confident, French-speaking person using the accent really well, and then they get to English language and they don't say anything at all because they haven't done the readings and they don't like English, and that's the image they project of themselves. So this is interesting. Conversation is cooperative. Generally speaking, we accept the face that other people present or offer to us. When people start talking to you and maybe you like them or you don't, that's based on the face that they've given you. All right, their image that they projected to you is what we are accepting or rejecting. On rare occasions, we might reject the face that someone presents to us, or might accuse them of being insincere or mock them for trying to be more knowledgeable than they actually are. So have you tried to use your English language linguistic vocabulary around your non-English language friends? Someone might go, "Oh, okay, wow, you sound really intelligent," and some go, "Oh, you sound like you're trying too hard." So that's when they reject the face, if they think you're trying too hard. In formal language, we're trying to be tactful. Okay, so most of the time we tend to be tactful, and we do this when we're meeting someone for the first time, and maybe we don't like their religious, political views or something, and we don't like that, and because we don't know them very well, we try to be tactful about it, like, "Oh, you really like Scott Morrison. Oh, okay, let's talk about something else then." So we might move the conversation away from the thing that we don't like that person likes, because we're trying to be tactful, and the way we try and move the conversation away from that political conversation, the way we move it away is trying to be tactful. Okay, we don't want them to know that we don't like their view on something. Okay, so that's us being tactful. Just have a look at this. You might want to pause it to read it yourself, but it's an example of the word gay and how Microsoft on Xbox, they didn't like the word gay, and so they said it's always offensive to people, and they didn't allow one user to put his town's name in there, Fort Gay. So that was a problem because the word gay has become, it used to mean, so the semantic shift, it used to just mean happy, and now it's come to mean homosexual, and so because of that, and because it's used as a racial, sorry, not a racial slur, a discriminatory slur, people have been offended. So this is about face and the image that people put out there and what people are allowed to say about that. And it came down to putting your information into the Microsoft database. You weren't allowed to put the word gay in. Here's another one. It's an Australian one about the word hoe, which for Americans, hoe can mean prostitute. And there was this big uproar because one particular agency that did their Santa Clauses, they hire people to play Santa Claus and send them out to different locations, and they told these Santa Clauses that they couldn't say ho 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 because it meant prostitute. And then because it got out into the public and there was a bit of outcry about it, they said, well, each Santa can, make up his own mind whether he wants to say it or not. So they tried to save, essentially, they're saving their own face by going back on their word. But what they were trying to do is actually establish that it's not okay to use sexually discriminatory language. To say "ho" like that is a reference to prostitution. Therefore, women might be offended by it. So here's the discussion by Goffman again about the purpose of face work to maintain status. It's an interesting discussion about status. People with lower status tend to be more attentive to the face needs of those who are higher status than vice versa. So when you're talking to your boss, you might be more aware that he has a bigger, status than you, or she has a bigger status, and the way you talk to her is different from the way she might talk to you. She might be fine with being aggressive and yelling at you, but you would never do that to them. So that's a face needs thing. That's face work, maintaining status. Here's some examples of politeness for you. I'll let you read those yourself. Okay, the politeness principle by Lakoff. Lakoff suggested that conversational interaction is governed by what she called the politeness principle. She defined this by specifying 3 rules or maxims which speakers usually observed. You don't impose, you give options to people, and you make your receiver feel good. So this is how you do politeness. This is what politeness, these are the factors of politeness, okay? Don't impose, you give options, make your receiver feel good. Can you come up with your own examples? So there's some examples listed there for you, for each of those, 1, 2, and 3. Can you come up with some examples maybe for your workplace, maybe for school, maybe at your sporting club, or maybe a musical group that you're involved with? How might you not impose on others? How might you give options to other people? And how might you make your receiver feel good about what you're doing? I'll give you some time to write that down. Pause your video and come up with some examples of your own. Here's some definitions for you of convergence, divergence, mutual convergence. Notice how there's decreasing social distance, there's increasing social distance, and then there's mutual conversion. Convergence is where both speakers are trying to speak languages that the other one will understand. Okay? Upward and downward convergence, making our speech more like received pronunciation. If you're talking to someone who might not understand linguistics, okay, you might not use your linguistic dialect of all the meta language. You might throw that out because you're talking to someone who doesn't know that jargon. Okay, there's downward convergence as well, making our speech less like received pronunciation and more informal. Okay. The example below is about a woman in Cardiff. So she has a specific accent in the call center, and she noticed how she adapted her accent according to the person on the phone and her attitude towards them. So actually, maybe you'll notice if you call, there's a call center, you're trying to call this company, they put all their calls through to a call center in maybe India. Does that call center person actually change their accent to suit you? Do they use Aussie slang to you to try and help you to like them and to speak your language and to essentially do downward convergence? Okay. Here's audience design theory. We speak for our audience and adapt our speech accordingly. So that is audience design theory. Essentially, how do you speak to your audience? Can you please do the task below in your table group? So you do it by yourself, I'm sorry. Look up these terms and briefly describe them in your own words. And a last task for you. What do we do when we speak to show sensitivity to others? When you're trying to be sensitive to your brother or sister who is upset, what do you do to show sensitivity to them? Okay. What do you do when your friend is upset? when your parents are upset with you? What do you do or change about the way you speak to show sensitivity to them?